They say you'll be just fine. Just to you, you'll be just fine. Is it all a lie? What if Jesus is alive? I'm trapped in this culture. I heard America is where dreams come true, and all you gotta do is just do what they do. Find a good job and work all the time. Keep to yourself and stay out of crime. And you can find religion, choose what you want. Nobody cares as long as you don't want. Beware of Christians, they think they know it all. They're too outspoken, they think they know it all. No, I don't belong here. Something is wrong here, but I can't find the truth of life. I'm trapped in this culture. They say you'll be just fine. Just to you, you'll be just fine. Is it all a lie? What if Jesus is alive? I'm trapped in this culture.
Oh yeah,
That is not true.
Mhm.
oh let me go listen to D. I didn't know.
I mean, he in there.
Man, when I first heard that album, I was like, "Yo, whoa, whoa!"
Hey,
I
what
did not
album is
expect it
that?
to go there.
What
I think
album
it's
is that?
His Christmas album.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, he gets really detailed. I was like, "Oh,
It's a little explicit content. I ain't really listened to it
yeah."
all like that, but you know, if that's where you're trying to go in the kingdom, you know, you know what I'm saying?
I feel it, bro. Hey, let's get. Oh man, that was great. Listen, let's get. Man, I gotta. Dang, that was good. That was funny. Welcome to the Flip the Switch podcast, where we flip the switch on everything from
Everything.
relationships to self-identity, fatherhood, motherhood. We talk about it all. It doesn't matter what it is. Business, entrepreneurship. If you want to talk about it, we talk about it. Listen, we got a special guest on the show today.
Special guest on the show.
Very special guest today. This is one person that is not just I know him or Dre knows him. We both know him. I think, well, Dre's known him longer, but nonetheless, you know what I'm saying? Like, for me, he's been literally what we call a day one. Like, literally since the day that I met him, got his number, and everything that he's ever told me, he has been a man of his word. Like, let me just, long story short, really short story. We met in, at Ronnie's, a.k.a. Elance's, album release party. And by the end of the night, he gave me his number. He found out I was moving to San Bernardino, where he's at. And he was like, hey, man, if you need help moving, let me know. I didn't cash in on that only because I just met him and I was like, I'm uncomfortable doing something like that. It's like, I want you to get to know me first. I want you to think that, I want something after I just met you. So I was like, I'm not going to call him. I had other people that was able to help me out. So it was all good. But I appreciate him because ever since then, there have been times when I did need some help. He was there for your boy. Yeah. Welcome to the Flip the Switch podcast, bro. This is Mike
Thank y'all for having
Darnell.
me on.
Yeah, man.
Mike
This about to be
Darnell is in the house.
this is about to be our most anointed episode.
Oh my God.
Hey, no, for real though. Like, I don't know if there's gonna be another.
Now, let me brag on you just for a second, man. Since I've known Mike Darnell, man, he's been a great mentor in the faith, man. Me and you, we've had some conversations where I felt like God was on three-way with us. You know
For
what I'm saying?
For real.
On the phone. I've witnessed you, you know what I'm saying, fight against religion. You know what I'm saying? I've witnessed you help me out with music. You know what I'm saying? Every area that I've seen you work in, you put God first and you go hard in it, man. So I appreciate you, bro. Just as a man overall.
Thank y'all, man. Y'all some pretty good dudes, man.
You gotta feel good when you come on here, man. We got
For real.
hospitality, you know what I'm saying?
For real. I mean, yeah, there's a whole lot of bragging I think we could both do on Mike. Like, Yeah, I'm not even gonna get into that. That's a conversation that we could have if we have an episode where everybody's reunited. We could have that conversation then, because it's a lot I've been through in the past 4 years, and Mike has been
It
there
has been
for
4
a
years
lot
since
of
you moved out here, huh?
yeah, bro.
You've been at
And
San
That's
Bernardino for
crazy.
4 years?
Crazy.
well, no, I've been out here for 3.
Dang.
I've been out here for
It's
3
almost
though.
4. Yeah.
Been almost
Dang.
4. But
Wow.
it's just been, he's been there for a lot of crazy stuff in my life the last 3 years. So yeah, I could, like I said, I could brag on him. I don't know, you can too, but I can brag on him like for hours on hours, for days. Like,
All right.
yeah.
Praise the
So
Lord.
anyways,
you need brothers like that, man.
yeah, for real, you do. That's one thing I can say about both of you guys. Like, I can't call Dre a day one, because the first day that we actually met, we did not keep in touch. We didn't actually hear from each other for almost a whole year.
I know.
Until I think I mentioned something to Bree when they were dating. I don't know. Wait, I don't know if y'all were dating at the time. I don't
don't think so.
Y'all talking about. But
No, I
y'all were
don't think
friends though. Y'all were close friends though. I know that much for sure. And yeah, like we met. We both came over for a pool day. I never talked to him like
maybe for
the
like a
whole,
year or something. Yeah.
yeah. And then somehow, some way, we got reconnected off of something. I know it was off of music.
Mm-hmm.
And then we met up. We actually literally met up at a Starbucks in Hawthorne. And then ever since then, though, we've been cool. And Jay has been one of my closest brothers, one of my closest friends. Never, yeah. I appreciate both of y'all. I can brag on y'all for days.
Praise
So
God, man.
Listen, man. As you know, we do a random opinion of the week. And every guest that we have come on, we put it on y'all. We put it on you to do that random, because they hear from us every week. It's like, we got to have some variety. But before we get into that, Mike, before we get to your opinion, I gotta say that this week the highlight is Mike Darnell and his album Election Day.
For
Like,
real.
that album, bro. Like, it's dope. I one thing I feel, well, let me just say it like this. The reason why I personally feel like it's dope is because it's a very well balanced album contextually, or based off of the content.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about spirituality, you talk about God and the kingdom, but you talk about real life stuff in there too. You talk about things in the culture, you talk about, marriage, you got a little bit of just everything in there. And you know what I'm saying? Like, that's hard to find, where you can find a really well balanced album.
And I think what else is dope about it is that sonically, you can't even find an area to put it in. It's like it's in its own league sonically.
Yeah, they need to literally
make
make a whole Election Day category. Like, just make it call it election, the election, or the elect category. I don't care. Like that's a whole genre by itself. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a category by itself, bro. But that's like he said, sonically, man.
It's funny. I just think that, like, that whole album was literally like my journey for years. I mean, there's so many songs on there that were written back in college, and ideas that were started back in college, and then coming out of college, like dealing with life, like getting my first job, like not really enjoying my first job and my boss, and the pressures that came with that, the pressures that came with like losing friends and everything. So I think the reason why it's like so widespread like that is because it's literally different seasons of my life that's ultimately coming to a place of choosing, like, even though people have hurt me, even though society has these things, these pressures, these stigmas about me, I'm still gonna choose to be a man of God in spite of it. So it's crazy, because it's one of those projects where I believe like it wouldn't have been what it had been unless I wrote it for, like, I mean, literally some of those songs before the album was released were like 8 years old.
And some of them I've been waiting on for a while. Some of them I had known for a while.
I know, and there's still a lot of them that we waiting on, huh? But they coming. But yeah, man.
And my favorite one is Good Thing, man. Good Thing got the vibes, man.
Oh
Had
yeah,
to
I
be.
love good. Hey, good thing has gotten me through some stuff, man. Like for real, I had to like. There are times I had to like turn it on and make myself think. You know what I'm saying? Like my wife's strengths and stuff like that. Like this is like keep me focused, like and keep me in perspective. That's really what it is about. Just keeping
Yeah.
that perspective.
It's
'Cause
it's it's interesting, man, because I think like with that project, I mean, I'm definitely a worshiper at heart. And I mean, you
Mhm.
guys have seen me especially you, Dre, like you see me in the context of like worshiping and like leading worship in the church context.
Yeah.
But there was just always something in me that was crying out more like, hey, like you can shatter barriers of religion by just like putting out this other sound that actually lives in you. I mean, it's like the kingdom is not restricted to a certain sound. The kingdom has
Right.
all types of sounds and all types of cultures within it, and the different backgrounds. And so a lot of those sounds, like, people don't want to talk about like marriage and it being in the context of something that's good because God put it together, right? But we
Yeah.
hear all this other stuff out and surrounded on the same issue of love, but it's always, I love you, you hurt me, I'm walking away, never see you again. And
Mm-hmm.
so literally that song was really to give God's voice on what unity between a man and a woman should look like, because the culture tells us all the pain and the hurt that it is. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's just to give God's perspective on it. And that's kind of how I approach the album. Like, not the perspective of the church, not the perspective of the culture, but literally, if I took away the confines of religion and we just had Jesus alone, what would his viewpoint on it be? Would
See,
it be
Mike bring that
so?
kingdom talk. He bring that kingdom talk. That's
Yeah.
what I
See,
like,
that's
man.
why.
That's
That's
what I
why I
like, bro.
enjoy. Hey, it's been times when I've been over to Mike's house and like literally like it's a chill to my body, like because like the way that Mike talks, like it's almost as if literally God is talking through him. No matter what we're talking, we could be talking about coffee and then go into to talk
Bro,
about, you
I'm
know what I'm
telling you,
saying? Like
and his
it's like
reputation
amazing, bro.
precedes him. When I told my wife, I said, "Man, we have a Mike Smith on the show." She was like, "Mike Smith? Oh snap! Like, what's this
Yeah,
one going?"
yeah, yeah.
Man, y'all are crazy, man.
No, it's real.
No, for
Bro,
real,
you
bro.
you
That's
have a
real.
profound impact of your presence, man. It's just
You have
I can't explain it, man.
you have no
God
idea
bless
how
y'all, man.
I,
God
I
bless
don't even
y'all.
know if I ever will find enough words to describe how like grateful I am that, like, you know what I'm saying, like we're not just friends, but like I like you're one of my like big brothers, you know what I'm saying? Like that's hard to find. You know what I mean? Like it's really hard to find when you got it. You know what I'm saying? Like that's why I try to make sure every now and then, at the very least, I hit you up just to check
Yeah.
on you, see how you doing, or say what's up, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like if like there have been times when you were like on my mind and my heart, and then like I'll miss that day. Like, oh shoot, I didn't hit up Mike. Okay, let me hit him up today, like right now while he's on my mind. You know what I'm saying? Like I try to get it
Right.
done, so that way I'm not. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not a constant battle, so to speak, of trying to make sure I hit you up. Like no, like that's your brother. Like you need to hit him up. You know what I mean? So
I appreciate y'all,
yeah,
man.
man. So look, let's get into this opinion of yours, and yeah, we ready. I know Dre's always ready to argue. He's always
Always.
argumentative. I don't know why, but he
I
is.
I don't know. I don't know how y'all gonna feel about it, man.
Oh
And Dre,
boy.
Dre probably gonna side with me just because he's from the South. But hey,
Okay,
man,
okay.
hey. So grits with sugar in it is trash, and it's terrible.
What? What?
It's
Oh,
trash.
wait a
Only grits with salt and cheese should live and have life. That's it.
what? Wait,
Oh
wait, wait,
my,
wait, 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 wait.
bro!
You should have
I
went back a
literally
few episodes before you even brought that up. I think that was on like the second or the third episode.
something like that. Yeah, I brought that up,
Oh,
bro.
did you? Hey,
Yes,
Yeah.
it's
I
it's a
love
discussion that
grits
needs
with
to
sugar.
live, though.
I love grits with sugar. I put sugar and salt and cheese. I
You
have
from
it
the
all.
South?
I have it all.
Bro, what is going on? That
Oh
is
my
so
goodness.
trash.
Oh my goodness.
This is the discussion that needs to happen right now. I mean, we got riots going on. We got Black Lives Matter, and y'all over here talking about some sugar. I mean, so listen, even if it was on the past episode, like, this is a conversation that needs to live.
So like the only time
grits is a Southern comfort food.
it is.
Oh, I
And
don't
see,
knock that.
I don't use sugar when I pair it. Like if I pair it with catfish or I pair it with shrimps, I don't use sugar. But if it's by itself, just with some eggs, I just got eggs on the side and some toast or something. Sweeten that thing up, man. Sweeten that thing up.
That's trash, man.
Listen. I already said this before, and I will say it again and again. Like Mike said, that's something that we will absolutely agree on. This is a conversation that we can have for a lifetime. I don't care, and I'm gonna constantly, side with this. Listen, if you don't put the salt in the water first for the boiling point and all that stuff, and then add the grits, then add the sugar and the butter to it after. Now what?
Sir,
and then cheese is optional. You know what I'm saying? It don't have to be cheese.
Cheese is optional, but
cheese is optional.
Man, it's the cheesiest. I mean,
I love some good. If it's made correctly, I love some cheesy grits. Yeah,
cheesy grits is fire.
I'm with that. I ain't against that at all. But
all right, so we got some agreement. My God.
Yeah, we got some. You would have known this if you would have listened to the episode before.
I didn't listen to it, but I'm almost glad I didn't, because this is a conversation that continues to be just like a dividing like aspect of Black culture. Like,
it's funny because
I was literally at the church the other day, and somebody was like, "You don't put sugar in your grits?" And I'm like, "No, what are you talking about? That ain't the South. That ain't how we grew up in the South." Listen, that's where grits originated from.
True.
Like, I was even reading this article about how grits creates a racial and social divide.
Really? It does.
Yes.
It does.
I think that's why I was.
To know that.
I think that's why it was on my mind, because like they were in this article. I forgot who the article was by, but they was literally talking about how, like, people who grew up in the South, they, it's savory taste, but they was like, as people moved out, or people that were not from the South, there's this thing that developed that they started putting sugar in the grits. So really, what the article was saying is that you ain't authentic if you got sugar in your grits.
Hey, bro, Louisiana over here, man. I'm born and bred, man. I'm authentic, man.
I don't know what happened, man. I don't know what happened to you.
And it's funny, man, because like, I grew up in the South, but my family is from California. You know what I'm saying? They moved to the South, so I was always back and forth.
So you maybe man.
I think it's a little bit of that mixture that's in me that got it.
He had mixed breed. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh man, I don't even.
So I don't know. I feel like it's a conversation that still needs to be had.
Well, yeah, especially since this episode is about fatherhood. I already see that you're about to, mess up your kid's life. You're about to mess up your whole family's life.
Wow.
Excluding sugar from grits, man.
Hey,
I'm praying for your daughter, man.
I feel like, you know what I'm saying? This is my opinion, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. But I feel like you should allow Zoe to taste it for herself, and then she can decide on her own. You know what I'm saying?
Has she ever tried it?
Huh?
Has she ever tried it?
No.
No. Well, that's not something we do in our household. It's just, I mean,
I do that.
As for me and
listen, see, she gotta know what home base is. She gotta know what the foundation is. She can venture off. She can try to leave, home base, but nah, I ain't.
Nah,
I mean,
man.
I'm not.
Not in his house.
Not in my. I'm not preparing.
Come on,
Hey,
Mike.
hey,
Man.
I need
You
to know this.
know.
Hey, I gotta ask. Hey, I gotta ask this question, Mike. If you saw your daughter putting sugar in the grits, would you slap it out of her hand?
Nah, man, I ain't evil. I mean, God, I ain't evil.
I'm just checking. I don't know. You know,
I'll
I
be
don't
like,
know.
you know how black people when we have our like opinion and our voice get higher, be like, what
Yeah.
you doing? What you doing?
She gonna be like, Uncle Dre put me on. Sorry, Pop. Uncle Dre put me
Listen,
on.
no, that
Man.
you need to unlearn that habit. That's not good.
Oh man,
That's
that
what's
was
up,
great.
man.
Oh
That was
man, it was
good.
good.
That
It
was
was
good.
good. It was good to revisit that conversation. Like, yeah, that gave me the smile of my
That was
day.
good. And we
That was
remember
a
the little
laugh of the.
history behind it. I never even heard. I haven't
Yeah,
heard
I
of that.
never knew that.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, I knew
it,
it originated out there, but I didn't know, like, how, I didn't know all of
it's
that
like a
you just
whole
said.
like it's like a whole like thing, man. Like it's like a big divide.
That's
And
crazy.
Hey,
I didn't even get into it, but I was seeing something where somebody was talking about how it actually like has a lot to do with the divide on racism too. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's like
really?
not that it's like a key pillar of it, but it's
Right.
like intertwined in that whole conversation. So
What? Didn't know
yeah,
that.
I think we need to. I, I mean, obviously, like if you want sugar in your grits, have sugar in your grits. My God, live your life. But
Hey,
you
Paul
know,
told Paul told me that if I ain't got no conviction about it, don't worry about it. And if other people ain't got a conviction,
there
or if
you
they do
go.
have a conviction for it, then it is what it is. But don't argue with me about what I'm eating.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
I feel like that conversation needs to be built. I mean, revisited because I grew up in the South. I only came
Uh
to California for college, and my understanding through the whole college experience was that I was going to go back home, but I didn't. So there was a lot of things about the West when I came out here. I'm like, man, these people is different.
What y'all doing? Yeah, I know. I know that. I know that feeling. I do know that feeling.
So yeah, I mean, and then grits are something that's really associated to like home.
Yeah.
So
hmm
when I'm out here, like my whole immediate family is back in the South. So it's kind of one of those things. You know how like you have like little things that bring you back to
That
your
bring you back
childhood.
home. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's what it is for me. So it's close to me. So yeah, it's not the best thing for me, but it tastes great.
You can't eat it all day.
So
I feel it. So listen, let's get into this conversation. Dre likes to, for some reason or another, he likes to just dive straight into deep feet, 8 feet and stuff like that, and say, hey, let's just float here. Like we don't even have to swim. Let's just float here. And I'm like, no, Dre, let's start off. Let's swim our way there. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know. So it works out good. So I'm gonna ask this question first, and then we'll figure it out from there. But just in general, what is fatherhood like for you? You know what I'm saying? Like you only have one kid, and on top of that, it's a girl. You know what I'm saying? So what is fatherhood like for you?
what is it like for me? It's definitely enjoyable for sure. Enjoyable. It challenges me a lot, and it causes me to self-reflect a lot on how I'm portraying the role of a father in general, but also the role of a Black father, with all the stigmas and things that come with it that society has placed on it. Fathers not being involved and fathers not, or even times where fathers are involved or present, but they're still not involved. Like,
Right.
like having a father that's in the house, but like, you don't really invest any time into
The
it.
autopilot father. I've seen some
Yes.
households like
Yeah.
that. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, as fatherhood to me, it carries a level of weight because it's something that I feel that I have to like I have to bring it every day. Like I can't just, and I mean, and it's not every day that I'm perfect. There's days
Yeah.
where my attention gets divided, or, you know, work being work, or life being life, and positions that we carry as men, you know, for other like aspects, because you put on this hat as a father, this hat as a pastor or a leader, this hat over here on this in your job or whatever you do, and you can find that you're not giving the time out of a 24-hour day. You didn't really give any time. It was just very unintentional time. And so I often have conversations with myself, like, am I being intentional? And so it's you know, it's a daughter of one, because y'all got kids. I mean, y'all got kids, but you know, even leading one, you know, it still is a challenge, you know, because you can be so brought away and steered to other things. So
Right.
That's true. I think intention was something that I figured out over the past year. Really 2000, like the end of 2019, and the beginning of 2020, I really had to be like, okay, no, I'm not just playing with my daughter in the meantime. You know what I'm saying? Not just
yeah,
talking to her in leisure time. Like I'm setting aside time for
yeah.
intention. You know what I'm saying? To teach you how to cook, to learn with you. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, that's what it's starting to finally like hit me too. It's like, yo, like my wife had to kind of get on me the other day. It was like, yo, like you're not spending as much time with them, you know what I'm saying, like you used to. And that's sometimes like a hard thing. Like, you know, I don't know about for all men. I don't want to say for all men, but I know for me, it's hard, especially like when I kind of already know that, you know what I mean? And I'm internalizing, like, you know what I'm saying? I just got to a point where I had to like realize, like, yo, you've been living in your head all these years for so long. You got to start, you know what I'm saying, living outside of your head. You know what I mean? Like, you got
Man.
to start bringing those conversations out. You have to start, you know, bringing those actions out and things like that. Start really dealing with things and changing the whole narrative. So that way, you know what I'm saying, you can be better, you know what I'm saying? And especially in regards to fatherhood, because you're raising up the next generation. You're raising up part of the next, you know, what the future is going to look like. And
Yeah.
you can't just sit back and just be like Dre said, kind of just, you know, do it in the meantime, or, you know, in leisure time and things like that. You have to be more intentional and say, okay, maybe I'll like, especially like if you're working from home right now, it'd be like, okay, I'll do 4 hours of work, and then, you know, they'll, by the time that's done, they'll be awake, so then I'll go play with them, you know, for a couple of hours or something like that, whatever. Then I'll go spend time with the wife, then I'll get back to work, or, you know, whatever. But you have to be more intentional about it. You have to like actually make it be where it's like, yo, like you're actually putting in time that's not just leisure time, but it's actually intentional.
Yeah.
And, you know what I'm saying, and that way it's more effective.
Oh yeah, for
So
sure. And I mean, I'll be honest, man, like there's definitely days I just feel like I'm I'm failing, you know, at
yeah.
that, you know, because sometimes as a provider, you can be like, man, I'm trying to make this money and trying to take the family to another level. But even in the midst of that, you have to make sure that you're not just exhausting yourself. And I honestly, I find myself doing that often, where, because I'm always trying to build something, I'm always trying to integrate something, do something new for the family, and it's
Mm-hmm.
great, but the dollars don't translate to love. And
Right.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
and that's the thing, is like,
That's deep right there. Yeah.
and
Sheesh.
and as men, you know, society tells us that the dollars make you worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you ain't even
Yeah.
worth being the father, you ain't even worth
If you
being the
don't have the
husband
money.
unless you producing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad, because like as men in general, growing up, society has taught us this thing. And I remember early on in my marriage, I would have conversations with my wife, and I would just tell her, like, you know, the whole thing about, like, you know, uh, starting a family, having to, you know, move out of an apartment that you're renting or whatever, and move back home, or you know, move into your in-laws house because, like, you know, financially you weren't able to do it. It's like, it should be like, hey, it's good, like, we family, we got each other. But our society has taught us, like, man, you do that, like you like the worst. You like the worst
Seriously.
person as a
Seriously.
man.
For real.
So yeah,
And then
yeah.
and now when you bring it down to being a father, it's like the conversations come up like, well, you should have never had no kids, because I mean, obviously you ain't producing. So it's like, is me being a father and me being a provider the only thing that makes me worth it? And I think that's what the conversation really, the stigma really leads to. If I'm not producing, then what good am I? Now we know
Yeah.
that's not the truth, but that's how society has like put it to us. And so because of that, men will spend more of their time answering that question on their day-to-day life versus answering the question of being in position as a father and really being able to give like your heart, your time, your energy to your kids, because you over here chasing gifts that you feel like they value more.
Wow.
So,
See what we're talking about? See, this is exactly what we were talking about earlier.
Man. No,
I mean,
it's real though, because I can't tell
it
you know,
is.
like I've had to do that recently, like move back in with my in-laws, and it took me a while to feel like a man again. You know what I mean? To
yeah.
feel like the king of
Dang.
my household again, because it was like, how could you be that but not able to keep a roof over your family's head at the same time? You know what I'm saying? Not able to. So yeah, it really does, and it hurts your pride. You know. You know, I got convicted like some years ago, like when my daughter was really young, at one of the rhetorics. You remember Rhetoric, the poetry event?
Yeah.
And one guy told a poem, and at the end of the poem, he said, I know I just don't ever want my child to be like, who's Jesus? The guy who took my father away from home?
My
And
God.
I was like, oh,
Sheesh,
dang,
sir.
you know what I mean? And it happens, you know what I mean? Like you could be so involved with what you believe your mission is, you know what I'm saying, your purpose,
Right.
that it takes you completely away from the home. You know what I mean? And they
Man,
suffering.
you just said a mouthful, man.
Man.
I mean,
Real.
that thing right there is that's huge, man. Like, and that just makes me think about the scriptures where, you know, it talks about, you know, how can a man serve in the house of God with basically his house not being
Right.
in order.
You know what
Right.
I mean?
And I feel like there's so many men, like the first level is just being a husband, right? And then the second level is being a father. And man, it's so crazy, like finding that balance between serving God and his people.
Okay, wait, stop right there, because you about to answer a question I was gonna ask. I'm gonna just ask
Yeah,
it,
I
and
was
then just
actually,
keep going.
I didn't even
So
want to ask that question because
I
I
know,
didn't
but
want to
he's
jump in
here.
and say,
He's here
Dre.
already.
No, I know. I didn't want to jump in because he said some stuff earlier that connected to that, and I didn't want to be like, well, Dre. So there's a question about, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, but it was going there because now we in 8 feet. You know what I'm saying? Like we swimming,
Right.
and
So
floating.
yeah. So I was gonna ask you, you know, how do you balance your relationship with, you know, your church and being in your home life? You know, how do you balance that relationship?
Man, first of all, it's not easy. It's tough. And I think it's everything, right? So church life, you know, work, at work, you know, there's a certain, and it's crazy, man, just because of this whole like George Floyd thing going on right now. At work, I'm like the only black man on the team. Everybody else is,
Really?
yeah. So my boss is a white lady. She's awesome. I love her. She's awesome. But like I'm the only black person on the team. So it like, talk about being a leader, like someone who is called to leadership in any capacity, but in every capacity you lead, you know, so you're leading at home, you're leading at the church, you're leading at work, and conversations coming up at work. Like, hey, I don't really understand about like, why do black people feel this way or that way? And that's a whole nother question. So I'm gonna leave that alone. But maybe we'll get there later. But just like finding that balance, man, it's tough because and I pull work into it because you can't look at you have to take the whole 24-hour day, right? So I normally, like when work was normal, I'm normally getting up early in the morning, hitting the gym around about 5 a.m., 6 or 5:30, come back home. I normally leave the house before the family gets up. I get back home usually around like 3:30, spend time with the kids, or spend time with the wife, spend time with the daughter. And then honestly, I'm also trying to find time to build some other home-based business or something like that. And then normally I'm usually at the church probably like usually like 3 to 4 days out of the week for something, you know, something's going on, or maybe not at the church, but something in the church, like, you know, outreach or whatever. And you look at that time that work takes from you, like coming, you know, being gone, don't see your family really like awake until like 3:30. And then you got to be at the church at like 7. And then, you know, after that, like the daughter's going down at like 9:30. So it can be a struggle, man. Like just trying to find that balance, because you have to do each and all. Like you can't you can't just like be like, oh, I'm just not gonna do that today. So I find it a challenge. I find it a challenge all the time. But again, that intentionality, like when I'm spending time with my daughter, just really, you know, give her the time. So I mean, I'll put it like this: there's times that I'm like working on building whatever I'm building for the family, because I'm always trying to build some type of home-based business, right? And then the daughter comes in with her big old bag of blocks. She's like, "Come on, daddy, let's play, daddy. Come on, daddy." And I ain't gonna even lie. There's times when I'm like, "All right, babe, like like, give me a second, like, give me a second." And then like, there's times where conviction just hits me, like, you know what? She's asking and you're not responding. So you're teaching her a behavior that when she asks, not to expect a response.
Woo, stop. That just shot me.
And then dude, so like when those moments
here.
hit me, and it's really Holy Spirit, you know, convicting me, like, hey, put it down. Like, drop your computer and get on the floor. And there's those moments. I think the way that Ash would look at it, she's like, what just happened? It's like impulsive. Like you were just focused on this. You were literally just focused on this, and all of a sudden you just got up and just like start doing that. And then I'm on the floor playing blocks, like whatever, put everything aside, and it feels good, because you know that even though all of these things are important, like this is most important, because at the end of the day, I mean, and I'll just be honest, man. It scares me sometimes to think that like a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid, that's really where they start to make their decisions, right? So I'll just put it like this. So my parents are divorced, and I was 17 when like the whole divorce happened, right? So when they had like the little court meeting or whatever, the judge basically told me, she was like, you know, you're 17, you're not like 18 to literally make the choice yet, but because you're so close to it, you're literally like months away, I let you make the decision. Who do you want to stay with?
Dang.
Oh man.
That moment in my life.
I couldn't imagine being in that position.
That moment in my life.
Wait. Before you get to that part, I want to ask this, so there can kind of be a little bit more context with that. Were you close to both parents?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. My parents, like, I think so that when I turned 17, they had been separated for a little bit over 2 years. But all that while up to that point, like my dad, like we were a family. Like he would work, come home, you know, he would be there to support us at our football games and all of that. Mom was obviously involved in, you know, picking us up, taking us to school. Like, yeah, we were a family. Then, you know, the divorce happened, pulled the strings of everything. And, you know, then it was like, hey, like, who do you want to stay with? I chose my mom just because, like, society and how society is built, men are normally the ones that are out of the home more, the less visible, right? Because we're out making the money, right? And that whole, man, it opens up so many conversations. And I know I'm kind of all over the place, y'all, but
No,
Nah, you
you
perfect,
in the
bro.
right place. You in the
Yeah,
right
you in
place.
the this is what the podcast is about. This is what
well,
it's about. So yeah,
and
you right where you supposed to be.
I'll say, man, like going back to when Zoe was born, I remember having a conversation with Ash, and we were just talking about like how life was gonna be, you know, as Zoe started to grow up. And some way we got on like, man, it's gonna be crazy, like when she takes her first steps and, you know, walks and everything. And I was like, yeah, that's gonna be great. I was like, I'm probably not gonna be around to see it though. And she was
Oh
like, why
man,
you
and
say
it just
that?
came out of nowhere, huh?
Whew.
Yeah, like, we were just talking. It just, you know, and I was like, I'm probably not gonna be around to see it. And she was like, why would you say something like that? I was like, well, because society has it built for men to be away so that we don't experience those events.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
So
it
true.
went down that same way. I remember when
Really?
the day that she started walking, Ash sent me a short video and was like, Zoe just walked. And I'm living in San Bernardino, California. I'm all the way out in like Anaheim that day, you know, literally away, like, you know,
Dang.
because that's where I worked, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and even before that happened, like, you know, months before that, when we had the conversation, like that's how society has built it. Like men are not usually around for those moments, and those things there already make it hard for men to be by children sometimes to be seen as pillars in their
Right.
life.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, when it came to me going back to the courtroom, when it came to me making that decision with a child's undeveloped mind, a young person's fully undeveloped mind, I made the choice that I knew more. Is what
Mm-hmm.
I had experienced more. And so it's just like, you know, that fact, just kind of taking it into, you know, our context today, like that's how life has been for men. And my daughter, like, she definitely, I try to really make her feel special. And then that opens up this other paradigm, right? So now Ash has Zoe all day long. You know, Zoe has this thing, unsaid thing. Mommy's hard on me. Mommy.
Mm-hmm.
So then when dad comes, it's like, hey dad, like let's play. And my time with her is always like, hey, like roughhousing, you know, tickling her, playing around. And Ash like over there like, man, see, you spoiling her. But really the reason is because my time with her is a lot more limited.
Limited. Yeah, it's
But
limited.
her
Yeah.
time with her is so much that the things that she needs to be taught to bring discipline to her life, Ash has to be the one to enforce that because she's with her all the time. If
Yeah.
there's nobody that enforces it like that, then she's not going to get that side of her upbringing that puts boundaries in her life. But then when dad comes in, I'm also the most like brute when it comes to discipline when those times come, but I'm also seen as the most nice every other day.
Right.
So
It's true. It's true. Like my wife, like she knows, you know what I mean? It's like it's the vibe of the home. Like
yeah.
if she can't handle it, then it comes to me as far as discipline is concerned. But she knows most of the time the kids are happy to see me and she be looking same looks like they just you're the fun one.
You're the
Yeah, I
best.
get it.
You're
You
the
know what
best friend.
I mean? Yeah.
Oh, her best friend is here now. No, I'm like, man, but it's how our society has built it, man, and it's a shame that it's like that. But yeah, so I mean, so that's the thing, and I think that has to be balanced out too, because then you can kind of set this tone where like your kids kind of look to you as just like, that's the person I play with, you know, that's the person that I just like enjoy And, you know, sometimes like, well, I don't know. I think because like with Zoe, it's like when I say something, when I finally do say something, it has meaning. And she like, oh man, like I could get on her about something and she just run in the corner and start crying. But
Yeah, my daughter's the same way. Yeah,
yeah,
I don't
My
have to
sons are
talk
like
as
that.
much. My wife, she can say it forever. If I say it once, then you know
yeah,
she's like, oh shoot, like okay,
it's
it's serious
crazy.
now.
It's crazy. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Hey,
Man, it's
so
crazy.
man, see, I don't even really know where to go. Like I'm looking at the questions, I'm like, yo, like I don't really know. You know what I'm
Sorry,
saying?
y'all.
It's kind
Y'all,
of a
but y'all know
flow.
how I
But
am. I be back and forth, man.
no, but it's perfect though. Like I said, like you know what I'm saying. Like that's what this podcast is really all about. Is like having those real conversations. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like because there's so many people out there, whether you're a Christian or you know whatever you are, like people need real conversations so that they can get the help that they need. Like there
yeah,
been, I'll say it like this, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying about you earlier. You know what I mean? Like there have been so many conversations I've had with you where you know what I'm saying because we had those conversations, it helped in some way. You know what I'm saying? And so, and same thing with Dre. We've had conversations that have just helped in some way. And so, you know what I'm saying? Like that's what I'm hoping for. You know, every time when we do an episode is that you know when people listen to it, they find some type of help that they needed. You know what I mean in that particular area. Whether it's you know,
yeah.
so
For
right
sure.
now we're doing a whole series on fatherhood. We started last week with just me and Dre, and then you know we hitting with you, and then you know a couple of more episodes, a couple of regular episodes because we're gonna have some bonus ones in between them. But you know what I'm saying? Like that's what this is supposed to be about. It's supposed to help fathers out. One thing for sure is to hopefully, you know, help bring more fathers into the home, whether they're already in the home, but they're acting as sperm donors, or you know,
My God.
that's, or you know what I'm saying, or they're not physically there. You know what I'm saying? They need to find that reconciliation or whatever it is that they need to do to make sure that they're in their kid's life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but let me kind of ask this, and you know, we already just we floating right now on 8 feet. So, did you feel prepared to be a father? Like when you found out, you know, your wife was gonna bring a child into the world, did you feel prepared for that, or you know, how was that? How was that for you?
I don't think anybody feels prepared, man.
Like, nah, definitely not.
Well, okay,
But
so
some people they might feel, you know what I'm saying? They might feel like, oh, I'm prepared for this. And then they
all
realize that
right.
they're not, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Definitely not. And I think this is the main reason why. So y'all know Zoe was a preemie, and she was significantly preemie. She was almost 3 whole months premature. Um, and so at that time of her birth, like, I mean, I ain't have nothing ready, like no crib. I mean, we were like, oh, we'll start buying stuff like next month, and then all of a sudden she came.
Dang.
So I
Jeez.
mean, that in itself was crazy. But you know, as far as feeling prepared to be a father, I knew I was capable, but you know, that unknown area of territory that you've never been, like I was kind of like, man, I don't like, am I gonna mess this up? You know? But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the short answer is no. I didn't feel prepared. I didn't feel prepared financially. I didn't feel prepared totally mentally either. I just was like, you know, the great thing about my life is I follow Jesus, and everything that
For real.
scares me, I just put on him, and that's it. Like, hey,
Oh, that kind of leads to another question. And how did you deal with the news? Like, how do you think you dealt with it?
whew, I'll just put it this way, and I mean, y'all probably experienced it too, but maybe mine was different. So Zoe comes home. She came home Christmas night after being in the what do they call it? The NICU.
NICU. Yeah.
Yeah, after being in there for like almost 3 whole months, she comes home
Oh
Christmas
gosh.
night, and you know, NICU, it's a 24/7 business,
Yeah,
right?
it
So
is.
Mhm.
she's used to sleeping and lights on, used to hearing all the noise and everything. So the first night home, we got the lights off. It's quiet. and she going crazy. She like, what is this? I mean, we didn't sleep at all. I ain't gonna even lie. I literally said, God, is this how my life is gonna be now? Dude, I mean, I was like,
that NICU makes a whole difference.
Man, like we didn't sleep at all like that first night. Like it was so crazy. But you know, it I don't know, man. It was tough. It was tough making the adjustment. And then like unfortunately, because you know, I'm a homeowner and you know, I have a lot of expenses and stuff, like my company, they were gonna give me like, you know, the leave and everything, but that was gonna be like what, 60%. Ash is not working, and so I just couldn't do it. Like I literally took off, like I think I took off 2 weeks of work, not, you know, regular pay, just regular vacation time, and then I was just going back and forth to work. And so then me and Ash, we ended up coming up with the schedule where, you know, I was like, hey babe, like I want you to get sleep, because I don't ever want us to be at a position again where we like walking around like zombies.
Right.
So we ended up working out a schedule where I would get home from work. I would take Zoe all the way up until like 12 to 1 a.m. and Ash would literally go to sleep at like 6 or 7 p.m. And then she would get up at like midnight or 1 a.m. so that she could really get some sleep. And then I could get some sleep before I got up at like 6 to head to work.
That's like graveyard shifts.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you know, but it worked out. But it was a challenge, man. Like it was a challenge making the adjustment, and then having a preemie that came home and was on oxygen after she came home for like another 3 months. So everywhere we went, we had to carry a can with us and have the tubes in her nose. And then, you know, some days where you would want to do things and, you know, meet up with family, it was just like we were just so tired from being parents in general, but tired of all the other stuff that came with having a preemie that had to be on oxygen. And I don't know if y'all know, but y'all know Zoe had like a heart surgery when she was like 2 months.
No, I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah, so she so basically like when babies come out, you know, they're supposed to cry, and then there's like this third valve to the heart that closes because they cry. Well, she came out and she didn't have the strength to cry. So the valve never closed. So they basically was like, well, we're going to give her time to get healthier. And it was crazy, man, because the same day that we actually did have the baby shower and we entertaining all these guests here at the house, Zoe was literally under the knife. And
wow.
Yeah. And it was crazy. And she went and mind you, so this is like a month and a half, 2 months into her life, she has this surgery. Well, then after that, she still doesn't come home until about 3 months, right? So it was just crazy because, like, when she came home, she wasn't even 5 pounds. So she went under the knife and she was like 3 pounds, 2.5 pounds. Wow, and it was hard. So we put on our smiles and everything in front of everybody, entertaining them. But we was just so anxious to get to the hospital and see how it went. And so, yeah, so even to this day, like on Zoe's back shoulder blade, there's the scar where they went in through her shoulder blade to get to her heart to close the valve. So it was a lot, man. So it was a whole lot. And and that's why, I think definitely, if I be honest, that's one of the main reasons why we haven't been so like move forward into the next step with having other children. And and I don't know if you guys also know, but Zoe is also considered autistic, slightly autistic, but autistic. So that brings us other challenges as well. So yeah, so it's a lot. So I definitely wasn't prepared for all of this. To go back to the
Yeah, for
question,
real.
but you know, God is faithful, man.
I feel that.
Man.
Uh,
It's like, it's crazy, like when you really think about like all the different challenges that come with early on. You know what I'm saying? Like when you first bringing the baby home and trying to adjust, everybody's situation is so different, man.
yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Like there's a similarity with, you know what I'm saying, like where Lennox had to go to the NICU as well. You know what I'm saying? But even still, that's different because, you know what I'm saying, like like Zoe had to do the whole heart surgery thing and all the other stuff, like, you know, after. Like I didn't have that much. So it's like there's some similarity in the sense of the NICU and, you know what I'm saying, and just dealing with all that. And now that you broke that down as far as like she's used to, you know, the whole lights and the sounds and all that stuff, that makes more sense in my head. When Lennox came home, it's like, oh, okay, that makes better sense why he was acting like that. You know what I'm saying? Like I kind of like was like, oh, well, he used to sleep in there, but it wasn't like completely clear to me like it is now. Like, oh, that's why. Like that's why he
Yeah.
was acting like that. That's why it was so difficult to deal with him and things like that, and to comfort him and all, because it was a lot different. And I think,
Yeah.
you know, on top of that too, he wanted mommy, and he needed that comfort that
Mm-hmm.
only his mom could give. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, but yeah, man. Every pregnancy, every birth, every child is definitely different.
Oh
So,
yeah. And it's the whole autism thing puts a whole nother aspect in it, as parents, just because like the system, you know, they immediately wanted to go ahead and label her,
Mm-hmm.
wow.
and that's one of the things that, you know, we've been battling basically ever since, like, you know, they basically ever since she was born. I mean, like literally, like we take her home, you know, probably like right around the time she turns 1, they're like sending us information about like how, you know, hey, you know, a lot of babies that are born like this, they do show signs of autism and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, we want to have her tested for this and tested for that and all this. I mean, Zoe had at the age of like, I want to say she was like 2.5. They were sending a teacher to the house like a couple times a week to just kind of help her with motor skills and all that kind of stuff. So having to go through that, and literally knowing that the only reason that this person is in your house is because the system is designed for kids that show these signs of autism. And it's hard because allowing her to be enrolled in these type of programs creates a track record.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the way that the system deals with these track records is they label the case and the files so that when the kids get to school, this has been their history. Expect behavioral problems, expect this type of issue or this learning disability. So don't put them in the regular class, put them in that class. And so that's just been a challenge, and it's a challenge for us too, because, you know, obviously, like the way that a parent deals with children, they deal with them based on their history. Our history wasn't that of being autistic. So even us as parents having to learn that sometimes like the way that Zoe responds to stuff is literally a sign of her autism. Like, you know, being overexcitable because of this, or wondering why like she's like gazing at certain things a certain type of way. And you're like, hey, you okay? And then she comes out of it and just like laughing and running to the other room. Like, and just understanding like all these signs and understanding how autism works, but you don't really have a reference for it because you've never had to raise a kid, let alone a kid that's autistic.
Right.
And then understand how they learn, and how their learning is different than the regular child. So it's been a lot, you know.
I'm glad you're talking about this too, man, because, you know, I had a conversation with Ashley.
Mhm.
Like I think at the baby shower of my son, because you guys came, and I was talking to her about my daughter because she was showing some signs, but we never got her diagnosed. You know what I mean? And one of the reasons why is because kind of like some of the stuff you said, like I didn't want her integrated into that system. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I didn't want that label to follow her. And you know, my idea about limits is like, man, even if she is learning a little different, she ain't really got no limits. You know what I'm saying? So we're not gonna place none on her that's unnecessary.
Exactly.
But yeah, man. So, but it is a challenge at times. You know what I mean? Because it's like, okay, this is different. Okay, this is different. You know what I mean? But somebody once told me, I got a friend that's kind of in that field, and she came to me and told me, was like, yo, what really matters is that you can communicate with her. Can you communicate with her? And so I just, you know, I went into like, you know, I'm competitive. I went into overdrive and was like, we gonna talk every day. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna figure out a way. We gonna talk every day. So, and that richly worked though. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, forget what, you know what I'm saying, what any diagnosis could say. We talk. You know what I'm saying? And there's nothing in there I've tried to teach her that she hasn't learned. So I'm good with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm glad you're talking about this though.
Yeah, and it's crazy because like, you know, you begin to like learn how your children understand when they're autistic, and it becomes like, oh, it's not really so different. It's just that the world though, they don't understand it. And so you're trying to like bring them into a place or teach them how to communicate with an outside world that doesn't understand it. And so sometimes people don't understand, like, you know, they can be like, oh, y'all are just like super overprotective of her. But it's like, no, we don't really want you to misunderstand how she's trying to communicate, because you don't know how she communicates.
Exactly.
It's not necessarily what is normal to people. And so, you know, some people can look at her, you know, the way that she responds to certain things as like, you know, disrespectful or whatever. And that's not the case. It's just like, you know, she don't understand it like that, and you're not talking her language. And so, so yeah, I mean, we can some people would be like, y'all overprotective, you know, just like even like certain children's groups and stuff. Zoe, you know, most of the time, she's just gonna go, and part of this is because she's a single child, but she'll go and play by herself, you know, versus playing with other kids and stuff. So
my daughter's the same way.
Yeah, so it's a real conversation, man, and it's hard for people to understand, you know, until you actually walk in those shoes.
So let's do it like this. We're in the last few minutes of the of this episode. So Mike, let me ask this, and then we can close out from this. What is something that you can what's some type of encouragement you can give to the fathers out there that's listening, and then follow up with just, you know, where people can follow you and connect with you and whatnot, and your music?
For sure. Encouragement to fathers, man, is, again, be intentional about everything, man. Like, and, you know, and I say that from a place of just like, you know, understanding what it means to be a son of a family that has been affected by divorce, which many of us have, a father who has a daughter with autism, and just the importance of, you know, like I said, like the whole reason I brought up that point about like me being in the courtroom and having to make a decision between my parents is literally because, you know, like the age of 17 is where kids have the ability to make their decisions and their choices, what they're going to do, how they're going to hide things from you, all of that. They have more knowledge. And the very short time that we have as fathers, up to that age, what you do in those years, especially like the younger years, 5 up to 5, 6, 8, you know, that's going to determine really if your children feel that they can run to you, and if they feel that they can be open with you. I heard Dre, I think on the last podcast, you were just talking about like, you know, that there's some things that your kids aren't going to say. They're not going to tell you. And that's real. We know that. But you want to have such an open and transparent relationship with them that they don't feel any any reason to not share. Like they know that if they share something with you that's a little bit to the left, like your response is going to be like, I love you regardless.
Right.
Now, this is my perspective on it. And literally being a parent in their life that leads them to the right direction, even though sometimes the situation may be something that you don't want to discuss. So I think if you just continue to, you know, like again, like your kid comes and says, hey dad, like, can we play blocks? And you're like, hey, you know, I'm trying to finish up this work project, or I'm trying to finish up this assignment. You have to still do those things, but like find a way that in those moments that they can have more moments where you dropped that stuff and gave that time to them versus not.
Because guys,
you know,
plenty of times hit me and be like, boy, you better watch Blippi. You better sit down and watch some Blippi right now.
Yeah, I mean, you better learn all of the languages and all of the concepts, and I mean, and those things mean a lot. Just like, you know, we have our inside jokes or experiences that we have with each other, but we only have them with each other because of community, right? So being able to say, like, you know, I'm an excavator.
Oh man, that is Lennox's favorite song, bro.
Just being able to, you know, come. I mean, there's times I'll come in the room and I'll be like, I'm an excavator, and then she'll just light up, you know, just because that's something that she's in making those type of connections. So yeah, on that, to fathers, just be intentional as you can. As far as just connecting with me, I mean, Instagram right now. I took my website down just because I was like, I don't need a website right now. So I am, the tag is, the handle is I am Mike Darnell on Instagram. Yeah, that's probably the best way to connect with me right now. But a lot of things that I'm building, man, a lot of things I'm trying to get out, a lot of things the Lord is talking to me about as well. So yeah.
Nice,
sure, man.
Nice. Listen, thank you for coming on, bro. Like,
We
seriously,
appreciate
like
you, bro.
you said so many different things, bro. Like, it's amazing. Like, and it was very much helpful. It was very much needed. You didn't go far off nowhere. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I can't wait to listen back to it. I don't think I've ever been as excited to want to listen back to an episode.
I listen back to all the episodes because, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like it's one thing to deliver the message, you know what I'm saying? And it's another thing to listen back. And I've literally experienced that every single time that I listen back to, you know, any and every episode that we've done so far. So I'm even more excited for this one. I think especially because I'm a father myself, you know what I mean? So it's like, yo, like, he said some stuff that I need to listen to again. You know what I'm saying? So, but listen, the track right now that is playing in the background, that is Mike Darnell's song, his Election Day album, Because You Asked, literally one of my favorite songs, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that hook is like the dopest ever. Like, that hook, like, yeah. If people know where the lyrics come from, they'll understand why I say that. Is what it is. Hey man, we appreciate you, bro. Love you, man. Hope you guys are doing well in this quarantine. Well, I'm sure you guys are. We've talked, but you know what I'm saying? But listen, like, just keep being you, bro. That if I was to just say anything else to you, man, because you're that great of a brother and a friend, and anybody that meets you, they couldn't say any ill thing about you. They couldn't. Like, there's just nothing bad to say about you, bro. So I appreciate you, man. Thank you for coming on and being transparent with us and with our audience. And with that, man, we going out on Because You Asked. Hey, y'all go download Election Day. Like, go on Spotify, go on Apple Music, or wherever else you go to stream your music. Go download that thing, man. Because this, I promise you, it will bless your life. Period. You know what I'm saying? Like, it will help you. It will bring you to the light. It will flip the switch in your life. Oh, and speaking of, we are now on Patreon. Hey. Go check us out. www.patreon.com/We Flip the Switch. Go and support your boys And at the same time, go get your bonus content. Go get your exclusive content. Go get and tap into the content early, even for the episodes.
And shout out to our latest follower too. Shout out to our latest Patreon.
Oh yeah,
follower.
hey, that's my bro, DeAndre Johnson Sr., man. Appreciate you, bro. Listen, I couldn't ask for more support sometimes. Like me and DeAndre, we don't talk often, but you know what I'm saying? Like, that's one of my brothers that supports, you know what I'm saying, from far away, you know what I mean? He knows when I'm doing something, and if he can make it out or if he can go support, he comes support. Him and his wife, which is my one of my sisters from school, and they bring their kids, man. So I appreciate y'all.
All right, for sure, man.
All right, man, we out.
We out.
Thank y'all.